What was it about the trucking business? When you start to look at the X's and O's, when you start to look at how the business is structured, what made you say in your mind to say that the trucking business, out of all other businesses that I've looked at, out of everything else that I might have interest in, the trucking business is the business for me? Why did you make that decision? What was the purpose? What was the reason for you starting a trucking business? Why did you choose trucking over everything else? I know for me, when I really look at it, I didn't necessarily choose trucking as a business when I first started out. Although that was the business that I went into. I was a part of a group, and this group wanted a trucking business, so as part of the deal, I agreed to start a trucking business in conjunction with the freight broker business, right? But when I really look back at the decision to start a trucking business, what the whole decision was based around was, hey, there's a lot of trucks moving on the road. There's a lot of people in this trucking business, and the people that I see are really doing it. They're making money in this business, right? So when you see a lot of work, you automatically equate that to, man, that must be a flourishing business. That must be something that I can go in and make a lot of money in. So money, I think, is the first driver. Money was the first thing that the group looked at and said, hey, we can make a lot of money in trucking. At that particular time, it was a dump truck. We saw a lot of dump trucks moving around Atlanta, and we figured, hey, it was a time to jump into that and get some of that business. Now, the other part of it was freedom. They sell this idea that you are a boss. You are a owner of your own business. And yes, you are a boss, you're an owner of your own business, but is it a business that basically gives you a job? Because when you start thinking about you as a trucking business owner, you are the employee of that business. You got to drive the truck. You got to make sure that everything happens in that business. When it comes down to maintenance on the truck, in order to flourish as a truck driver, I personally believe that you have to have some type of maintenance background, right? So you don't have to send your truck out to the shop for every little thing, right? So now if you have a truck and you're providing the maintenance for that truck, well, that's a full-time job. You're driving and you're working on the truck. Right? So is it really freedom involved in trucking, right? It really sounds more like, and from where I sit, it's more of a full-time job that basically you've created for yourself, right? So it's self-employment. Now, I personally think that self-employment is better than being employed for someone else, but it's still a job that you've created for yourself. So the idea of freedom is not necessarily what is made out to be, I don't think. When it really boils down to it, people say that you should really enjoy what it is that you do, right? And some people say they start a trucking business because they really like driving trucks. Now, I personally look at that and say, man, you like driving trucks. How long will that last where you really enjoy driving trucks? That can only be sustained for a period of time, even if you enjoy it. At some point, and I think sooner than later, you're going to get tired of the truck. You're going to get tired of driving the truck because of what comes with the truck. You see, a business is not just about driving a truck. It's the business of trucking that drives people out of trucking. So when we start to think about why you come into the trucking business, one, we talked about money. And when you really look at it from a money perspective, I want us to really dial in on this. That's a facade in a sense, right? Because people in trucking who make money in trucking, from what I've gathered, because I've been on both sides, those are not truck drivers, right? The people who are making money in trucking is the people who provide services to the truck. Freight brokers, freight dispatchers, insurance folks, the folks that provide fuel to the trucks, the folks that provide maintenance to the trucks. The truck driver His business is the reason why those other businesses survive, why they flourish. But when it really boils down to it, the truck driving business owner don't really make the money, from what I can see. Now, I want you guys to correct me if I'm wrong. I'm sure it's some of you out there that's killing it, but I'm talking about the vast majority of people that come into trucking. When it comes down to the money piece, you'll find that you're not really the one that's making the money. Maybe I should put it this way. You make the money, but you spend the money right out on the expenses that come with the truck. So what I should probably say is you make money, but you don't make a whole lot of profit, right? The margins just aren't there in the trucking business from what I can see. So when I say it's a facade, it's an idea that you can make a lot of money, and you can, but how much do you keep out of what you make? I would submit to you not a whole lot, because a lot of times what you do is you start off with a used truck, which makes sense, but at the same time, it's a lot of maintenance that comes with a used truck. I had a dump truck. We started off with a used dump truck. I think we paid about $28,000, $30,000 for the truck, but we were spending $3,000 a month just on the maintenance of the truck. Again, it's not the truck driver who makes the money in the trucking business. It is the people who provide services to the truck, right? So this money idea is something that you really have to look at and dial in on and make sure that the numbers are what you expected them to be. And if they are not, then you have to probably look at your decision, reevaluate it, and say, hey, I got to apply a different strategy here, or I got to go in a different direction, right? What I'm trying to say is that when you really start to look at the trucking business, I think you have to ask yourself, why did you start a trucking business? What was the reason for this? What was my purpose in starting a business, a trucking business? And am I getting out of it what I intended to get out of it? Am I seeing my vision come to fruition, right? What I saw for myself in trucking, am I seeing that happen over time, right? And if you're not seeing that, if you think that you say, okay, let me look at it. Look at all of the time. Look at all of the energy and effort I have to put into this business just to be where I am. If you look at that and you say that's out of balance, then you probably need to reevaluate your decision as a truck driving business owner. Let's say you have 5 years as a trucking business owner. And when you really start to dial in on the money, it does not meet the expectation that you had in your mind. You're not making nearly the amount of money you thought you would make. When you look at the freedom side of it, you don't experience the freedom that you thought you were going to get. Most of the time you're working. As a matter of fact, all the time you're working on something to do with the truck. Third thing, if you really don't like it, like you thought you would like it, you're not enjoying it any longer. And it's not easy, because a lot of us start this business because we think it's going to be easy. But now you're not getting any of that out of it. It's not easy. You're not making the money you thought you were going to make it. It's not getting the freedom you thought you were going to get. And you don't like it like you thought you were going to like it, right? And you don't see any of that changing. Why is it you are still in a trucking business? Why do you still have your truck, right? Why haven't you said, you know what, now it's time, after taking a look at this business and looking at it from the inside now, not from the outside in, I'm inside. I realize that this may be a good opportunity for some people, but it's not a good opportunity for me. And I have to change directions and go a different way. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that you got to get out of trucking, right? You might have good trucking knowledge that you can utilize in a different part of the industry. For example, as a truck driver, you already know how loads move from point A to point B. You know what happens at the docks when you get there. You know all the different problems that happen with freight and how to fix those problems. You understand the business from a truck driver's perspective. But what you don't have right now is an understanding of a business from the freight broker side of the house. But because freight broker and truck driving is such a close relationship, there's an easier transition from a truck driver to a freight broker other than just coming into the freight broker side of the house without any experience. Now you can do both, but it's easier to come in as a truck driver because you already have the experience of moving loads. What you don't have is a good understanding of how freight brokers move loads. So here's what I want to do for you. Check the description box. I'm going to leave a link there. It's a link to my 5-video series, and that series is titled How the Load Movement Process Works. Now, what it's going to do is show me in the office moving loads. I'm talking to shippers and carriers. That way you can get a better understanding of how we work as freight brokers, how we do our job. And then you can kind of look at it and say, man, this might be something that I want to give a shot, right? So check the description for that link and click on that link and you'll get access to the 5-video series. And are you realizing your trucking business dreams? Or has that dream become a nightmare? And if it has, have you considered going in a different direction? Maybe within the trucking industry, applying that experience and knowledge that you already have. I think it might be something you ought to consider. Until the next time, I wish you the very best in your life and business. See you at the top, because the bottom is much too crowded.